This softcover book is Cthulhu Abides, a role-playing game of investigation and madness. Normally, I would do some kind of unboxing, but this was ordered through Amazon for a very, very low price. It came packaged in your typical padded envelope that Amazon will sometimes use for some of their products, inexplicably. It came a little damaged. I don't know if you'll be able to see the corner. Yes, corner was dinged a little bit. Doesn't affect the spine in any way. And this corner was folded a little bit. But, in a sense, this feels like a finished work, and yet it also feels like an unfinished work. So this overview will likely sound like it's glossing over some things, which is fine. I expect some parts of the game to change in the future. As an example, the cover we're looking at, if you go onto the website and take a look to see who the artist is, or look inside, you'll notice that this cover was not used with permission. Hopefully the author can get permission, because it is a pretty fantastic cover. But when you look at the cover, you see that there's some sizing issues to get the art to fit this size and shape. So definitely more work needs to be done in some aspects of this role-playing game. The back is pretty simple, and when we look at it, it mentions that it presents a new approach to Lovecraftian role-playing, in which brave heroes of the post-war British Empire confront the plots for the worldwide Cthulhu cult. The author's kind enough to include their design notes, what they were trying to do. They didn't want to replicate BRP and the basic role-playing system from Chaosium that powers Call of Cthulhu. The style of creating investigators doesn't really appeal to them, and yet going so far as games like Trail of Cthulhu or Cthulhu Dark by Graham Walmsley, these didn't fully scratch the itch for Lovecraftian role-playing either. And so what he ended up doing was trying to figure out a way to have the best of both worlds, to pull the things from traditional style playing and pull the things from more recent games, and concoct an approach. Well, has he been successful? It certainly is an interesting read. It's pretty simple layout, 2-column or single column in places. There's art. We like the fact that the original Elder sign is represented. What does the game actually try to do? At 177 pages, the book manages to do a lot. It includes freeform spellcasting, a completely new way to approach madness in a Mythos-style investigation game, which is referred to as dynamic madness, and it focuses exclusively on things represented in Lovecraft's own writings, not those of his circle or those artists who came later.
So, what is Cthulhu Abides? What's it like to read it? This is not a review of the game. I haven't played it yet. This is just observations after having read it. Dreaming within haunted relay, Cthulhu Abides. All right, there are some things in here which really stuck out. Character creation is pretty fast, and characters themselves are kept very simple. The madness system is not treated entirely as punitive. It's treated as a feature of play, much like you find in Lovecraft's writings. While going mad, the investigator in some way connects with the story, or the character of Lovecraft's tale connects with the story, or a higher plane of awareness, or has some kind of horrific realization which drives them even further into madness, and yada, yada, yada. This becomes a feature of play, the dynamic madness system. The spells are not represented as a spell list. like you would find in Call of Cthulhu, which then encourages players, GMs, keepers included, to simply invoke the spell as printed rather than using it as an inspiration for spells in play. The way that we read text definitely influences the way that we play. If we see something listed out as a spell, the title that goes along with it tends to be what's used. Cthulhu Abides is not going to be immune from this, but it does bring in a freeform magic system to help tone this down a little bit, let's say. And it includes 2 levels of spells. Let's say there's esoteric magic. This is the magic that humanity has managed to hang on to from its past interactions with the mythos. And then there's actual mythos magic. They don't work exactly the same way. There are ways for things to go wrong, which is kind of nice. So, you can sit down with your group and make investigators quickly. The investigators have a broad swath of skills which affect how roles work. They can learn magic, they can go insane. Going insane may offer them insights into what's going on. There are ways for them, through their connections and through their personality, their background, to slowly step away from madness. Other members of the group can step in and try to help them recover from madness. So the sliding toward and away from madness would feel dynamic. It would be an active thing. It's not the inevitable descent or decay of sanity that you find in other games. I imagine over the course of life of an investigator, their sanity slowly ebbs away. But you get to fight tooth and nail for it, and sometimes you can recover. Okay, so that's not so bad. Freeform magic, I'm a proponent of freeform magic. I really like it. It cites in the book an example of the Dunwich Horror, in which our 2 Miskatonic University heroes are able to cobble together a response to the Whately horror, and yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what it cost them. The dice mechanic for Cthulhu Abides is described as a poker dice mechanic. And those of you out there who have experience with Cthulhu tech may be reeling back in horror at the idea of another one of these, but it's not that bad, and it has some cool perks. In this system, the way that it works is you roll your dice pool. You're using D6s. And you're looking for pairs. If you find pairs, you add them together. If this exceeds the highest number that you've rolled on any of the dice, then that's what you keep. Otherwise, you take the highest single number. It's pretty simple. May not be as fast as simply identifying, a success versus a target number, like roll over 5, count all the 6s kind of thing. But at the same time, it doesn't really involve higher math or very large numbers or identifying whether it's better to go with this or that sort of thing. So it's not too bad. And it allows for the cool mechanic included in here of different types of teamwork. The game approaches teamwork kind of like teamwork actually happens in real life. There are groups of strangers who are thrown together and they have to work together. From a certain perspective, they are a team. Yet they don't know each other. They don't know what their skills are, their outlooks are. They don't really know much about each other at all. And so working together as a team is really just working together independently in the same place on the same thing. Then there are, teams that know each other a little bit. And then finally, at the end of the scale, there's a really well-coordinated team. And so there is a way to handle teams in the game where the dice rolling will reflect this. Teamwork is described in the book as having 4 levels. There's none, meaning you cannot employ the teamwork mechanic at all. Disjointed, you're working together. Close-knit, you've learned, about each other. and then united. You're an actual functioning team, maybe with even some practice in acting together in some set of skills and whatnot. So none, disjointed, close-knit, and united. One of the things that you can do when improving your character, between stories, as it were, is work on your group's cohesion to move them up in teamwork, actually representing the time spent to get to know each other, become a team, which is cool. I'm not going to go through the whole mechanic, but there are some cool things in it, like the teamwork level of the team is restricted to the person whose cohesion level, their ability to be a member of that group, is the lowest. So if you've had a death, or if a character has retired, or a character is currently too mad to continue, that sort of thing, and a new character is added to the group, their cohesion level sets the teamwork level for the group. So you might have had a united team at the beginning of the investigation, then lose a few people and wind up with, at best, a disjointed team. And I think that's kind of cool. I also like that you can improve the teamwork. As you go up the rungs of teamwork, your ability to be more successful as a team is enhanced. So there are 4 levels of teamwork, as I've said: none, disjointed, close-knit, and united. With none, there's no teamwork possible. With disjointed, everybody rolls and they announce, their best total. If there's some cohesion, if there's some overlap between these, then the roll will benefit. If not, it won't. So what do we mean by that? Everybody might roll. The leader is the only one who can declare. All right, it'll be that person's roll which stands. So let's say that guy got 2 5s. If anybody else contributes 5s, like they announce, I have a 5, or I've got 2 5s, then these things will be added together for a greater total. Great. But it has the feeling of luck about it. They happened to coordinate on that thing. If we move up to close-knit, the leader gets to announce, I have 2 5s. And then people can voluntarily, offer their 5s. They may have had a better roll of their own, but we don't want to waste numbers, and we want to be trying to coordinate and work together, so they know the leader's role is going to stand. They know that it's going to be his 5s. If they offer anything that's not a 5, it's not going to count. So they maximize their effect at that level. So if they have any 5s, they offer those. These are all added together to his 5s, and we get a final total. But in united teamwork, everybody declares their best, and they can then identify what would be the maximum possible best outcome that they have just rolled. So somebody else may have had a better roll than the leader's 2 5s, and so then he can contribute, to their roll instead. It may turn out that everybody rolled a lot of 4s, right? And so everybody contributing those 4s gives you a larger number. So very cool. Madness is quite well organized and gives the player some useful tools to grab onto, but also keeps things as a mechanic so that it can be dealt with what looks like fairly simply. There are 6 levels of madness, ranging from calm to being a maniac. That 6th level is not for PCs. That's where you're gone. So they describe the cultists at being at that level. But so calm, lucid, feverish, hysterical, deranged, psychotic, and then finally descending into a maniac. Your PC will have a madness level, and then they'll have a current level. And it is possible to move back up the scale toward sanity. It's described as being difficult, but possible, which is cool. Characters have a crutch and they have a frailty, and these are to appear Events are to be manipulated so that these appear in a game. There's a chance for the character to recover through the use of their crutch, and there's a chance for them, of course, to suffer and slide down the scale of madness as a result of their frailty. In addition to providing useful role-playing descriptions of each of those levels of madness, it then looks at each of the professions. And the professions in Cthulhu Abides are very broad, and rather than long skill lists where you have to assign percentage points or pips or whatever, you're given a range of 6 skill types, and quickly assign a bonus for each. Where do you want to, in which broad category do you want to be more effective? And then, in relation to madness, each of the professions is described as being mad. What kind of outcomes? Like if you're an artist and you go mad and you're in a Lovecraft story, what do? You make these weird paintings, or composing unusual music, or whatever. The madness bubbles out in that way in you. But what if you were what if you were a priest, a bishop? What kind of effect would that have on you? What would the madness guide you to do? Right. Well, you may find yourself out there conducting pretty impressive religious rituals, and I'm suddenly put in mind of True Detective. So I quite like this. What happens if you are a scholar and you're experiencing madness? Right. When you're sane, you can do this. When you're stressed because of your madness, you can do something else. And when you're insane, you can do something else. So looking at the scholar, when you're sane, you can use esoteric grimoires. If you wish, you could learn how to use human magic. As you slide down the scale, you can learn to use mythos magic. When you are insane, you can gain mythos insight from grimoires, specifically from esoteric grimoires, the human level of magic. You can understand and glean the truth behind them. That sounds awesome in a Cthulhu game. So, what do I think about this game? Combat reads as being pretty good. I like magic. I like the madness. There are some things in here about sandbox gaming which I don't really agree with, but it sets a group up to be able to have a dialogue about what gaming is now. And it seems to be written from the point of view of, I used to game a lot. Gaming has changed during the period where I wasn't gaming, and now there are all these game options. I don't understand some. I don't like others. I don't want to keep playing the same old games. I'd like to play a new game, kind of thing. So the way the book is written actually sets you up to sit down and have the discussion with your group about, what are we going to play? How are we going to play it? And it brings up the old chestnut about the purist kind of investigation versus the pulp, two-fisted fighters against the mythos kind of deal. And it does so in an effective way. The reason why I call it a chestnut is, if you go back to Lovecraft, you're going to find threads leading to both outcomes. You're going to find the active characters using forbidden lore to deal with the problem. And you're also going to find investigators who are trying to stem the tide of madness before it happens, and trying to avoid things and not seek confrontation. Yes, in Lovecraft, the Navy depth charges a Deep One city. They move in and deal with the problem. And yes, there are others where the whole experience is simply hoping you have enough sanity left to write a letter to say goodbye to your loved ones. So it opens you up to have that discussion. How are we going to play? And are we going to play where the game master has made a mystery and you need to move through finding the clues that will solve the mystery to either a successful resolution, some kind of stalemate, or a failure to solve the mystery? Or do we want to have the game master design settings and we operate within them? The group decides. The game, this is my final point about the game, offers a mechanic called clue points, and they can be used in different ways. They can be used as an expenditure, like you would see in Trail of Cthulhu. I want a clue, please. I've earned a bunch of clue points. I'll pay for some insight now. And this would work like you would do in Call of Cthulhu by getting an idea roll. Like, look, we're stuck, and I'm sure my character would know more about this in context than I seem to be able to do. So let's have an idea roll, or a knowledge roll, or an education roll, that sort of thing. Here, through play, you earn clue points. The group establishes how that's going to work. And you can, in one type of play, you can pay them to get clues. Or in another type of play, you have to earn a threshold of clue points before you have put together enough pieces of the puzzle to move forward. So both of these are pretty clever ideas. And if I were to play Cthulhu Abides, I'd actually want to try it both ways to see how it flows. So Cthulhu Abides, still a work in progress. The game could benefit from having a read-through by an editor. And I don't mean just hunting for typos. There are typos in the game. But I mean in removing some of, not all of, but some of the authorial voice and keeping the concepts clear. Otherwise, for a work in progress, it's pretty cool. It's definitely ready for testing and playing and having some fun. And if you've grown up with playing different Call of Cthulhu type games, this is another interesting approach which may breathe some fresh life to reanimate the corpse of your old Mythos gaming. Who can say?